Okay, good. All right, good evening, everybody. Let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. I hope we have a flag somewhere. There you go. Thank you, Lillian. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic,
one
nation, liberty, and justice for all. Thank you. Thanks. Okay. All right. I don't know what happened to my gallery view. There we go. Good. All right. So I want to thank everybody for coming to Community Board 2's second regular monthly meeting for Tuesday, June 16th. It's our second virtual meeting using Zoom. And so far, so good. The agenda has been issued to everybody, and there's some meeting minutes that were issued as well. Thanks to Debbie and everybody else. So let's get into the agenda.
And if I can remind everybody, please mute yourself and use the raise hand function if you'd like to speak.
That's right. Thank you. Okay. Teresa, attendance.
Okay. AJ. Alifi. Babashkin. Balzano. Clift. Here. Bernada. Collegio.
Here.
DiTrapani. Dolan. Dermaz. Fagan. Freeman. Somebody's trying to call in. Garlisi. Genovese.
Here.
Fred.
Yes.
Hennessy. Jones. Kang. Khalid. Lillian. Here. Lanza.
Here.
Bliss. Markowski. McNamara. Here. Mendy.
Here.
Nina Vaggia.
Here.
Orlando. Pacifici. Harrell. Raju. Ruggiero.
Here.
Salick.
Here.
Santoro.
Here.
Seminara.
Here.
Sheen.
Why is it?
Trout.
Here.
Myself here. Vicio. Volkrel. Wild. Zadarico.
Here.
Zabinski.
Present.
That's it.
Okay, does anybody name not called that
Me.
needs to
I was
record?
waiting. Robert.
Lozano. Okay,
Antoinette,
I
is
got
that
you.
you, Antoinette? Okay, we got you. Thank you.
I've been here, but I don't know. The host didn't release me.
Okay, well, we got you now, so thank you
Please
very
release
much.
me. Thank
Okay.
you. Welcome, everyone.
All right. Thank you, Antoinette. Okay, thanks, Teresa.
Okay.
Acceptance of the proposed agenda that was sent out to everyone. Can we
I make a motion
on that,
to
please?
accept the agenda.
Jerry seconds it. Thank you. Okay. All right. First of all, Chair's report. First of all, let me just thank everybody for coming to this meeting here tonight. Sounds like we'll be doing this for a while until we get our marching orders in effect as to how we're going to function going forward. So until further notice, we'll be using these meetings, I suppose. I don't have too many points to bring to everybody's attention tonight. The only item that we did or undertook since our last meeting was, if you remember, we had that presentation on the homeless shelter on Victory Boulevard, and we did go on record against it, and we sent the city our notice, and they acknowledged the receipt of our notice. We did receive yesterday, National Grid is going to be installing storm hardening devices throughout the city. 4 of them or so in Staten Island, and they're going to be mounted on telephone poles, and they're basically routers, a computer network sort of system. And in the event of a storm surge or some inclement weather or some catastrophe, these devices will pick up that condition and down gas service, so we don't have fires and uncontrollable gas fires throughout the borough. They're putting them throughout the city. There was an application of revocable consent documents were sent to Jerry. We reviewed them, and we're in agreement with that plan because it helps protect Staten Island. I wanted everybody to know. Thank you, Jerry. City Planning's working group may call upon us to meet during the summer. They're not sure yet to discuss the Staten Island Special District. And Jack Bokrell and Sal Genovese are the working group members. Thank you, Sal and Jack, who's not here, but if we get notified, we will let everybody know if you guys want to participate. And that's basically all that I had to report tonight. Yeah, I guess that's it. I hope everybody's safe, and I hope everybody's going to get through the backside of this now, this pandemic thing. Okay, we have a presentation tonight, but before we do that, I wanted to do the public session first, and I'm just trying to find my notes for the public session that Debbie sent me, public session speakers. We don't have too many speakers for the public session tonight, so I figured we'll have the presentations first. We have a representative from the South Beach branch of New York Public Library, Mr. William Schlelt. Did I pronounce it correct?
That was pretty good. Yeah.
Because we don't normally do good when we pronounce names at CB2.
No, that was good.
Good shot.
Thank you.
It's all yours.
Thank you.
Ahead,
So my name is Billy. I'm from the South Beach branch of the New York Public Library. I'm just here to pretty much talk about our current reopening plans, though of course that's subject to change like much as nowadays. Forgive my son standing in the background there. I'll just go ahead and move him out. So the New York Public Library, Billy, you got to go in the room, all right? The New York Public Library, Brooklyn, and Queens systems are all trying to get onto the same page, and we are targeting a mid-July opening for the branches. It's not going to be every branch. It's going to be 8 total branches separated amongst Manhattan, Staten Island, and the Bronx. We're looking at 2 right now on Staten Island. I don't know which 2 at this point. They're still trying to figure out what buildings would be conducive to social distancing. I can tell you that the branches that do open will be a grab-and-go service, much like a lot of the restaurants are kind of doing right now, where patrons would put books on hold and they would come into a small entrance in the front and pick up their book and leave. They wouldn't be allowed to browse or use the computers, and there would be no public programming in the branch for the foreseeable future. I can say that our virtual programming will continue probably for the remainder of the year at this point. I can speak specifically to South Beach that we have a pretty robust virtual programming, but if anyone wanted more information on that, I could provide more information later about specific branches or system overall. The plan is to use the branches that are opening as like test cases, and if it's successful, the system that's being set up, they will open more branches in a second phase. Now, that's an NYPL phase, not a state phase. But the idea is within a few months that we would have many of our branches open. But again, anything is subject to change, and if there's any issues and the virus does come storming back, we would reevaluate the way we open the branches and maybe take a step back from there. I'll close with that we are continuing our summer reading, albeit a lot different than we normally do it. It's a quest for adventure this year. Unfortunately, because a majority of the branches will be closed and there are only no programs inside the branches, we will be doing everything virtually. So if you do want to take part in that, you know children who want to take part of it, teens who want to take part in it, I can provide that information for you either in the chat or in emails after the meeting. But just know that we are coming back, we are reopening, we are preparing and trying to keep the branches as safe as possible for both the staff and the patrons when they do come into the branch. And I could take any questions or even, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Just one question. What restrictions are the customers we're expected to see when we go in the library? I mean, do we Are there going to be limited number of people? Will there be social distancing and all that stuff? You know,
Well, in our,
thing?
sure, yeah, there are going to be. They were still kind of ironing them out, but more than likely, they're going to be, everyone has to wear a mask, both staff and patrons who enter the building. This is for our first phase. So patrons would just be coming in and grabbing their books or DVDs and leaving. They would still need to have a mask. We would have masks available should you forget your mask and you walked into the building. We will have a mask, the throwaway mask that you could use while you come to the building. There will be hand sanitizer in place. You wouldn't be able to really have any contact with the staff. We wouldn't be doing answering many questions. We would kind of be just directing you where you have to be in the branch. You would be expected to come in, get your stuff, and pretty much leave. And of course, maintaining that 6 feet. In the next phase, when we start using computers and everything's going to be separated. And there is an intense cleaning process. Every night, our facility staff will be cleaning the building to ensure that everything's good for the patrons the next day. But it will be masks and gloves.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else have any other questions? Okay, thank you, Billy. Thank you. All right. Second speaker we had Mendy. Oh, no. Okay. AJ, would you be kind enough to let Teresa know? AJ's here. Send her a message. Okay.
Bob, I went down the list and I got everybody. I just don't know what phone numbers are.
All right. We have a representative from American Red Cross, Beatrice Schlansky. Is she here with us? Beatrice? No. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Then anyone else that wanted to speak for the public session that has not notified Debbie, otherwise we will close out the public session.
Hi, I'd like to say something.
Hi, Frank. Yep.
Hi, how are you?
Okay.
So just quickly, I hope everybody's doing all right. So Department of Buildings, so as of June 8th, we've opened up. So we are enforcing the social distancing on site. Sites have to come up with measures to have hand washing or sanitizing stations, logs of people that come in and out of the site. And we'll be enforcing those social distancing. There are situations where we may not be, where workers may be unavoidable for them to be 6 feet apart, but in general they have to stay, maintain their distance. It's understandable. So if we run into those type of situations, so DOB will be enforcing it for the first 30 days. Any violations that are issued do not come with penalties. But after 30 days, then those penalties will start to stick.
All right. Thank you, Frank.
There's somebody else with a hand raised, 646-210-6574.
Who is that?
I don't know. Somebody dialed in, 646-210-6574.
I see it. You're recognized. Do you want to speak?
Hi, everybody. This is Stephen Caruso from the Department of Sanitation.
Oh, hi, Stephen. Go ahead.
Hope everyone is doing well, staying safe. Just wanted to talk real quick and remind everyone to please do your part. As I'm sure you've probably noticed, our pickup has been a little inconsistent lately, and that's due to several reasons. Most importantly, whenever someone is sick, we close our facility and we clean and disinfect. We also have closed boundaries in effect, so that means that whereas we used to be able to allocate manpower in between district lines, we can no longer do that. We're trying to prevent the spread of infection. So therefore, whatever we have on any given day, that's what we're working with. So at times when we're short due to staff being out sick or on vacation, we have to cut functions. And that can mean that we're cutting specific routes just in the interim, and we'll be picking it up at a later time. With that, I'm just asking everyone, please remember to put your garbage out for collection the day before. Don't wait until the day of. I know sometimes people wait until the very last minute because they know that, usually their garbage gets picked up during the day, but we could be picking it up overnight or on the 4 to 12 shift. So just to make sure, please put your garbage out the day before, after 4 p.m., and just bear with us. And also, just make sure to do your part. please clean in front of your home, maintain your area. We are issuing violations, of course, with an additional level of discretion, but more important than anything else, we want everyone to do their part. We all have to work together to get through this, and we don't want to have another type of health crisis on our hands. So if anybody needs anything, if there are any circumstantial issues in particular that you need an assist with, please feel free to reach out to me. But otherwise, I just wanted to pop in, say hello, remind everybody that we're here, and I hope everyone is doing well. Thank you so much.
Bob, you're muted, Bob.
Oh, I am. It's true. Okay, thank you, Stephen.
Anna Schatz from DOT or DO something.
Department of Health. Hello, this is Anna Schatz from the Department of Health.
Hi, you're up.
Hello. Just wanted to check in, say hello, and do a few points. So New York City is currently in phase 1 of reopening. We're at this point encouraging all New Yorkers to get tested for COVID-19. To get a location, a site next to you, you could either call 311 or go to nyc.gov/COVID testing. And New York City is offering testing kits to all hospitals and hospital systems. This is whether or not you have symptoms or are at an increased risk. As a reminder, immigration status will not be asked at COVID-19 testing sites, and care services are not a public benefit under the public charge rule, and COVID tests are free. They might ask you for your insurance if you have it, but other than that, COVID diagnostic tests are free. And repeat testing should be offered if you have COVID-19 symptoms. And if you are concerned by a possible exposure, including if you have spent time in large crowds, if you have had an exposure to someone with confirmed or possible COVID-19, or if there have been breaches in wearing a face covering or maintaining physical distancing. Additionally, as a reminder, keep physical distance, stay at least 6 feet away from other people, wash your hands often with soap and water, use hand sanitizer if soap is not available, and wear face covering because you can be contagious without symptoms, and protect those around you by wearing a face covering. And I'm again just saying hello, hope everyone is doing well, and I'm here if you have any questions.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. How frequently should people be getting these COVID tests, antibody tests?
Yeah, so if you have been staying at home for the most part and you haven't been, exposing yourself, you don't have to do it frequently. But if you have been outside and you have possibly been exposed, if you are an essential worker, especially, you can get it, frequently. And maybe, yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Of course.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. I said it 3 times already, but I think that might be the end of the public session. Okay. Public session is closed. All right. Next up, we have a presentation from Department of Parks and Recreation. They're going to present a new design for the Dongan Playground. Parks, you're up.
All right. So I mentioned before, I'm Dave McConnell. I'm the Director of Landscape Architecture for New York City Parks Department. And this is a little change of pace. We're looking to life beyond pandemics, and we are designing Dongan Playground. Very excited about it. Jordan Weber is on the line here. She's the project manager and the designer. We spent a lot of time looking at the park, understanding the flooding that's in the neighborhood, understanding the physics that are in there, to give you something that's going to function and be safe and be resilient. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jordan and let her go through the presentation. And I hope you guys like it. We put a lot of heart into it.
I'm sure you guys did. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
All right. Thanks, Dave. If I am able to share my screen, I can put the presentation up here. Right now, it's telling me that the host has disabled that.
Yep, give me a minute.
Okay.
That's the first. We're sharing documents now. See, it's another level of Star Trek we're in. Let's make sure it's what you want us to see.
You should be good to go now.
I see you, Jordan. We could see you. We could hear you. So your presentation
Right.
should be up whenever you're ready.
There we
There we
go.
go. There you go. Okay, you're up.
Okay, so as Dave mentioned, we're looking at Dongan Playground here. That's on Mason Avenue between Dongan Hills and Buell Avenues. The project is scheduled for completion for next January 2021. So the goals of the project are to basically increase the play capacity within the park while also mitigating the flood issues that are currently on site, as well as providing programs for people of all ages and abilities. So as I'm sure you're familiar, this is where the playground is, right next to PS 52. We are in the flood zone, both the current flood zone and the future flood zone. Also within the MS4 boundary, and a primarily residential area. We're about 2 blocks away from the hospital there. And several other parks that are currently under construction are also nearby. So looking at the existing conditions, we have an existing comfort station on site. We have a recessed area down in the back here with game tables, some other seating areas, and then a majority of the park is this recessed play space. So some of the issues that we focused on during the design are the circulation, some of the pavement problems, maintaining access across the site, and really focusing in on the flood damage that's happening on these lower elevations. So to give you a visual, everything in the medium blue there is within the current floodplain. Everything in the light blue is the projected floodplain. So major issues here. Yeah. And then just to give you an idea at how we're adjusting that, a majority of the site is going to be raised above that floodplain. So looking at the neighborhood context, the site sits above a lot of the rest of the area, but is still a risk. And we'll have 4 trees that are being removed because of design conflicts. So these are some images, the existing comfort station, the central LA and game table area, the play equipment. You can see some of the pavement damage there. Another view of the play, you can see how much lower we are from the street there.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
And the entrance from Buell Avenue. So earlier in the year, we had a visioning session with the students at PS2.
Alex, like you, how you used to.
Oh, your son's school, IS2.
Let me ask you a question. Did you
No, PS52. That's my friend's school, Jane.
It's really good.
So they requested more play equipment and really focused on accessibility on people of all ages and all abilities.
Sometimes the
Where did you get that copper thing?
Can you guys go on mute while we're presenting?
I just put in copper.
Copper grilling sheets.
Yeah, something like that to come up.
Excuse me a second, Jordan. Is that Dietrich Patty, please?
Yes, it is.
Hi, do you mind just going on mute while Jordan's presenting?
Okay.
We can hear.
I'm sorry.
Hey, guys.
Grilled onion.
There we go.
Yeah, you're good. Thank you. Okay. Go ahead, Jordan. Sorry about that. We're almost done. Go ahead.
So this is our proposed plan. Along Dongan Hills Avenue, we're keeping site access fairly open how it is now, just expanding some of the planting beds. Back where the game tables used to sit, we're putting in synthetic turf and moving some game tables over to the center of the park. That space will be right next to the 2 to 5 year play equipment. And then you can see a majority of the space will be for the 5 to 12-year-old kids. The 2 play areas have a concrete band separating them. This is actually an elevated platform with ramps and stairs to access that. And that allows us to pull some of the play equipment up to a nice height for accessibility. Also doing swings. Right now there are only bucket swings on site, so we're adding some strap swings and accessible swings, and then keeping some nice open circulation through the space.
Very nice. Very nice.
So we're raising all of the elevations, bringing everything up out of the floodplain, and we're also going to be integrating some below grade things to help mitigate flood issues as well. So those are areas where you won't see anything, but water will be held. So to look at this again, you can really see about 50% of the site is being lifted up out of the flood zone. All of our high value equipment and safety surface will be outside of the projected flood zone as well. So the site is expected to be protected throughout its whole life. So this is an image of what the play equipment is going to look like. This section is cut through the center where that elevated platform was that I had mentioned. So access onto the play is going to be 3 feet above everything else. There'll be a small 2-foot wall on the street side that'll be shielded with planting, and then a large, nice piece of play equipment in the center for the big kids. And this is a look at the synthetic turf area. So we're raising what was once sunken up to basically flat level so that we are meeting the planting beds there. And an aerial view so you can get an idea of how the circulation will work through the space.
Very nice. Very nice.
The fences will be minimal, just low fences where we need them for planting, and then 3-foot fences anywhere there's a fall possibility. So this is a look at the equipment for the older kids, lots of high ramps, lots of accessible features, and then sensory play for the younger kids. We're using all park standard materials, and we will have a drinking fountain that'll be mounted to the comfort station, as well as native plantings that can tolerate some of the flooding. So we are expanding the planting beds by about 10%, and this will help with some of the stormwater capture.
Perfect.
So this is the overall design. Thank you for your time, and happy to take any questions.
What is the current schedule for this project? You're in design now?
Yes. So design will go through January of 2021, and then we have about 8 to 12 months for procurement, and then it'll be a year design after that. So.
And you're in construction.
Right. Sorry.
Yeah. So.
Any cameras or security features as part of this design? Does there park standards, cameras, or anything like that?
We haven't included any, and that wasn't an initial request. Is that something that the community is interested in?
Well, we'll let Parks Group Freddie speak, but typically when we're reviewing, we've been talking about security systems and park, correct, Freddie? On our last reviews. You're on mute, Freddie.
How's that?
Okay. Freddie, when we were talking about park plans and programs that we've had before us, did we not recommend or have the parks consider security systems during the day or after hours and stuff?
Oh, yes, we've had a lot of interest with that on the board with other parks that they've been working on, and to, keep them safe, keep them secure. And what hours will they be open? And will there always be a person from parks there?
Okay, so the park currently the park is fully open. There's no gates to close it. So it is an open site, and it's going to continue to be that way. The one benefit I would say that this park has over some others is that it actually has external floodlights from the Cobra heads on the street that actually shine down into the park, which that's not a feature that we generally come across, but it's actually very helpful here because we don't have the whole expense of lighting up the interior because it's already lit up from the exterior, and that in and of itself is an excellent security feature. So we didn't tag anything else onto it. We kept it at what it was because we felt it was sufficient. If you wanted cameras, that's a path we could go down. I don't know that you need it here.
It's just something that we typically, as a minimum, that we would recommend. If you have to come back to the board or some concurrence or some support for us, that's one of the items you're going to correspond. So just heads up. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Diane McNamara has her hand up.
Yes, I'd like to ask, you have a lot of street grade or below street grade homes there? You're saying you're going to plant a few things. What are you going to do with all that displaced water now that you're raising that? Where's that going to go? Is that going to flood the surrounding homes?
No, so we'll actually have space below the surface of the park that'll detain the water that would have been captured there originally. In all those low areas where water would pull, we're now going to be collecting that below grade so that people in the park don't have to worry about it, and it'll be safely allowed to enter the sewer system as it's safe to do so.
So there's a sewer system there?
Yes, there's an existing sewer system that the park connects to.
Okay.
Leanne has her hand up.
Yes, the playground equipment, is it handicapped accessible? Is it going to serve multiple needs?
Yes, so we have a fair bit of what we call sensory play. So that's things that'll engage kids of all abilities.
Okay.
A majority of the play equipment is also on ramps, so anyone who uses a mobility device will be able to easily access different levels and different play experiences.
Could you put up the slide of the plants again, please? I was just doing the grounds here and I'm interested in taking a photo.
Sure.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Parks. Thank you.
Sure. Well, I'm just going to jump in and say that our process right now is that our next step is to go to the Public Design Commission, which we're doing. Is it at the end of this week, Jordan?
Yes.
Okay, so the end of this week, we'll be submitting this to the Public Design Commission. And so for that, we've told them that we're presenting this project to you. Okay. And so for us, what we would need from you is a letter of support from the community board saying that you support the project. And then that gets submitted into the Public Design Commission. And that's a big step forward for us.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so if anyone is not in favor of this proposed design and proposed use, and I think they've addressed 99% of their concerns, please let Debbie know either via email or now. Just raise your hand and we'll go to the next step. We'll send the letter and move on. Thank you. Okay. All right, no other questions on this particular matter. We shall move on. Just two administrative things. Typically, we go through the committee executive board members, but there's really nothing to report. So I just wanted to get that in the record. And we had one more speaker, I think. Is that right, Mark, from Controller's Office?
Yes.
Wanted to say something. Okay, is he still with us here?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I'm still here. Donald DeRosa from New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer's office. I'm just going to be very brief to move everything along.
Like a minute.
Over the I promise to you 60 seconds, maybe even less. We've been working on a lot over the last month. The big thing that I just want to highlight for you all, I spoke last month about how the comptroller launched an investigation into the mayor's response to the pandemic that we're in. We basically asked the mayor and his administration to preserve all documents between a certain time period and to come with us to kind of create a schedule to transmit those documents to us, emails, phone call transcripts, memorandums, and whatnot, just because we fundamentally believe this is something we need to look into. Unfortunately, the mayor and his administration have not been as forthcoming as we wanted them to. So a couple of days ago, we formally issued subpoenas to the mayor for these documents. This is important, and I'm highlighting it because we're in the midst of a global pandemic, and it's extremely important that we really understand how we responded to this, to know what we did right and know what we did wrong, and more than anything else, to prepare for what can come in the future. So I just want to make you all aware of that. The second and last thing is I'm going to post our website in the chat box now. You can, of course, look through our website to see all of the recent things that we've done over the last month that I haven't been able to speak about. But most importantly, we do have our COVID-19 resource guide that is a fantastic resource for anyone and is constantly updated with new information. And that's on our homepage as well. So I encourage folks to take a look at that. But thank you for the time.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right. Any other issues before we get to our feature presentation? So I want to make sure, and the host, if you can just mute everybody except Dr. Seminara, because we're not going to have any interruptions. She can take as long and whatever she needs for her presentation. Okay. So we're up to our feature presentation, which is by Dr. Seminara, the Aging Committee Chair. Dr. Seminara has been volunteering on the Staten Island Incident Command, representing the skilled nursing facilities for the past 3 months. She will discuss the industry's challenges, successes, and failures. And before she gets started, I mean, I just happen to have firsthand experience on what goes on at the nursing home over here, and I see exactly what the issues are, and I just my hat's off. So I just had to turn it over to Dr. Seminara. Doctor, it's all yours.
Hello. Hi. Can you hear me?
We can, loud and clear.
Okay, great. So thank you for the opportunity to just speak this evening. I wanted to give a little overview, really, of what I've been involved with. The Staten Island Incident Command for COVID-19 has really come up as a part of the community organizations active in disasters. That's the Staten Island COAD. And there's a subgroup of that COAD called the Medical Ecosystem. And within that medical ecosystem, we've had myself representing the nursing homes, Dr. Theodore Strange representing Staten Island University Hospital and Northwell Health, Dr. Philip Otterbeck representing Rumsey, as well as Tina Campbell. And Tina also has another role in that she represents New York City's Office of Emergency Management. She is our link to that office. Furthermore, Ginny Mantello, who is the Director of Health and Wellness for the Staten Island Borough President's Office, has really been the lead in this project. And we also have, of course, our COAD chair, Sharmila Rao Thacker. So we have all been meeting since, I'm going to say, the weekend of March 16th or so. And during that meeting, we have been meeting, it was about an hour and a half each night until the end of May, and maybe the third week of May as we were heading into Memorial Day. Instead of meeting every day, that's 7 days a week, we switched down to 2 days a week for our COAD meetings, but we still were meeting individually. And the purposes of all of these meetings was to get University Hospital, Rumsey, the nursing homes, and everyone to work together to be able to deal with some of the challenges that we're facing Staten Island in particular, dealing with COVID. So that you understand the nursing home landscape, there are 3,200 licensed beds in Staten Island. Most nursing homes, all of them actually, have long-term care beds as well as short-term restorative rehabilitation in most. 3 nursing homes have ventilator units. Several of them are capable of performing hemodialysis. There is also a dedicated traumatic brain injury unit at Seaview Hospital. And COVID came into the nursing homes as it was in the community. It essentially walked in the front doors with our visitors and with our staff. And while at first nursing homes, I think, were a bit resistant to taking COVID-positive patients from hospitals, there was the governor signed an executive order stating that nursing homes would not be able to use the COVID status of a patient as a means to refuse admission to the nursing homes. So the admissions had to be sort of COVID blinded. This was all happening in mid to late March when we were at our steepest ascent towards trying to get to a plateau in New York. At the same time, most nursing homes had no availability of testing. There was one nursing home that did test most residents very early on, and that's because its ownership was part of a larger organization, and that was ArchCare. So ArchCare was able to get some testing done at Carmel, and they really paid for it because they were able to identify that they had COVID-specific patients there. And I believe very erroneously they were vilified in part in the press because they knew that they had COVID-positive patients. Meanwhile, all the other nursing homes had suspect cases, and these suspect cases were called PUIs, persons under investigation. So we didn't have testing, we had persons under investigation, and those patients, like the patients at Carmel, would have testing for things that we did have access to. So they were being ruled out for influenza, they were being evaluated for sepsis. They were put on sepsis protocols with intravenous antibiotics and intravenous fluids. All during this time as well, there was a real fight for PPE access. It wasn't until we were about 4 to 6 weeks into this problem that we started to get drops from NISM of supplies, probably closer to 4 weeks. So in the beginning, everybody had their own supplies. They were burning through the supplies quickly. NISM did step up and start to feed some PPE supplies to nursing homes, although it was very variable from week to week. 1 week you would get a lot of gowns, but maybe the gowns were all extra larges, and so some of them couldn't really be utilized. Very variable on the N95 masks, and N95 masks are still in very short supply, hard to obtain. There are challenges on a weekly basis in getting eye shields and sometimes simply gloves. And so our incident command would try to work and share contacts. Such and such a pharmacy was willing to provide supplies at a discounted rate to nursing homes. And so we were trying to send out information and share information about accessing PPE, accessing support staff if you lost a lot of staff. And in the face of all of this, more executive orders were coming down from Governor Cuomo. There was an executive order that barred the use of hydroxychloroquine except for hospitals and for places that were doing formal studies. The problem with that is that it left out the nursing homes. Now, even though subsequently we don't think that hydroxychloroquine is helpful in COVID, we did have to fight, and our COAD was really instrumental in going through back channels, utilizing the office of the borough president. Jimmy Otto got together the leadership in the state representing Staten Island. They made a concerted front to the governor, and it was one of the rare times that there was an exception subsequently made to an executive order, and that was to allow nursing homes access to the same medications that were used in a hospital if they had the facilities to be able to administer them. So things like oral medications that were being used in hospitals were then able to be used in nursing homes, and this was a significant success win for the nursing homes of Staten Island. Furthermore, we were an integral part of the movement of patients from being inpatient to stabilization and then being able to go home. And we found that there was a bottleneck because CHAS, or community health agencies, Visiting Nurse Service, Visiting Nurse Association, Northwell, were at first resistant to taking the cases at discharge because they didn't have their own PPE for their own nurses who would be going out in the field. So again, our incident command identified this bottleneck, got all of these CHAs together, worked to try to obtain PPE, and Northwell had the Northwell Home Care Service had the backing of their Northwell system, so they were able to access some PPE in a much quicker fashion. But for VNS and VNA, we were very helpful in getting them to get access, to encourage the establishment of telehealth visits and get that bottleneck moved along. So things were still very difficult in the nursing homes. Our greatest density of positive cases occurred very much in the beginning, when I believe there was a lot of cross-contamination from visitors still coming in, from staff moving from facility to facility. And then somebody had, on a political basis, had criticized the governor about the rate of nursing home illness with COVID, and he turned his eye and really sort of started to take on the nursing homes. And the nursing homes, I think, felt that he really declared war on them. He was quoted in newspapers really going after nursing homes and suggesting that they never should have accepted what they couldn't handle. Nursing homes were fighting back, saying, you wouldn't let us not accept COVID-positive cases. And then came the executive orders that refused COVID-positive cases to go back to nursing homes. And there was then the most recent executive order mandating that there had to be testing of all skilled nursing facility employees twice a week, but this is an unfunded mandate. So the financial implications of this whole COVID experience on the nursing home has been absolutely astronomical. There has been decreased Medicaid reimbursement since January 1st of this year. And then in the budget that was passed by the governor on April 1st, there was a further a decrease in that reimbursement. So it's a total of 1.5 to 2% decrease automatically this year in Medicaid reimbursements. The census in all of the nursing homes is quite low now. I will give you the example of Edgar, where I work. We are licensed for 378 beds, and I think that yesterday we had 304 or 305 patients. Vast majority of this loss is because there's no rehab business. The rehab patients who were able to leave early in the outbreak all left, and we did have losses of patients on long-term care to the COVID virus, and we don't have new admissions coming in. So when you add all of that up, as people are slowly leaving, as they continue their rehabilitative process, the census continues to decrease. And then there's the increased costs that have been incurred. Yes, some of that will eventually be paid back under FEMA, but I'll point out that for Superstorm Sandy, there is still, outstanding FEMA creditors on Staten Island. So I don't see that this is going to really help them with their cash flow issues in the next year or two. The cost of testing at Edgar in the first 2 weeks alone was in excess of $200,000. So this has been very economically difficult. It's been morally very difficult to manage all of the different things that have been happening just from the perspective of trying to keep our heads above water and also trying to share amongst partners that haven't traditionally partnered before. The COAD and the medical ecosystem, by having this very tight group meeting on a regular basis, really tried to push out a lot of information. And pushing to the nursing homes had its challenges. We tried to push directly to medical directors and also to the administrators. We had some very successful meetings where we were able to share information and share some best practices. We all worked very closely together to try to get antibody testing done in the nursing homes on Staten Island. And this was really a push that I had because I think that population testing would really allow us to cohort patients appropriately in the nursing homes. By this, I mean that patients who had either tested positive or would all be together. Those who demonstrated no exposure to COVID could be protected in different wings of the nursing homes. And based on the size that one has and the physical plant, one could then allow for appropriate cohorting of residents. So that really was sort of at the cornerstone of what I wanted to do at Edgar. As the rehab patients were quickly discharged, we took over one of those rehab floors on the second floor and designated that as a COVID positive only unit. And this really helped us to be successful in isolating COVID within the nursing home. We worked, as I said, to develop the population health assessments, and we were working on the medical side. I had weekly meetings with my medical staff and with consultants who were in the nursing home to be able to share information about the status in the nursing home, share thoughts on difficult to manage cases, and also share our collective experience in our offices and in the hospitals and bring that back to us. For instance, the identification of one component of COVID-19 being the thromboembolic feature of the disease. Patients who have the disease, it seems that after they initially stabilize, when they later, in their second week of the illness, start to crash, it's usually coming from inflammation and thrombosis. The thrombosis may present itself as clots, and these clots primarily affecting pulmonary embolisms and sometimes stroke. So by being able to share this information, to identify when patients were having difficulty by monitoring their pulse oxes, we really tried our best to treat people with the information as we were able to receive it. Remember, this is a new illness, first identified in Wuhan, China in December of 2019, identified in the United States, primarily with an outbreak on the West Coast in a nursing home there in February, and then very soon after in the mid-Atlantic states of the United States. where we reside. I don't think that if you really analyze the numbers across our region, that New York comes up poorly. So I do have some data from CMS looking at the cases per 1,000 of nursing home residents with a positive diagnosis of COVID. And per 1,000 in New York, there were 98, similar in Pennsylvania with 94. In New Jersey, which is a much smaller state, they had a rate of 206, and in Massachusetts, 244. The death rate from COVID in nursing homes per 1,000 in New York is 42. In New Jersey, it's 145. In Connecticut, 125, and in Massachusetts, 117. And very sadly, the death rate of staff in nursing homes in New York, 0.6 per 1,000. In New Jersey, 2.7 per 1,000. In Massachusetts, 5.9 per 1,000. So I think if you compare us to our region, we've done, I'm just going to say, okay, of course, what happened is tragic. Our patients, of course, are some of our most vulnerable patients. They have comorbidities, they have advanced age, and by virtue of the fact that they are in long-term care in a nursing home, they are exceptionally dependent on others for activities of daily living and institutional activities of daily living. So they are very much at risk. I'm happy to say that just as we have seen a decrease overall percentage of cases in our community by keeping visitors out, and I recognize how heartbreaking that is for families, how very, very difficult it is. This is a problem, and also by testing our staff twice a week, we have really been able to tightly control people who are positive for COVID coming in contact with our patients. When the test is done appropriately to check for PCR and the RNA virus by nasal swab, it is not a simple nasal swab. This swab goes right back up to the posterior nares, and you feel like the back of your eyeball is being scrubbed, and that you have, you can almost feel it in your brain. I mean, it's a very specific, unusual feeling. And we all have it done twice a week. We also have done antibody testing on patients and staff, so we know who has been exposed in the past, and that has helped us to do our internal cohorting as well. I'm looking to take this opportunity of the summer, when things are a little quieter, to really get us prepared for the next wave. Unfortunately, my medical opinion is that another wave is coming, that we see that it has not been eradicated in the community. And we do know the behavior of coronaviruses is that they are seasonal. And I suspect that this one will be no different, that we will have a seasonal realignment of increased cases. And we will also have increased cases if we take our foot off the gas in terms of maintaining social distancing from those who you are not sure of what they have been doing in terms of their social contacts and behaviors. We are seeing spikes in states, and this is all very concerning. My concern as an advocate for the elderly who reside in nursing homes is to make sure we learn from the processes that have occurred already, and we're working to adjust utilization of anything that we can in the nursing home. We, I think, understand now the importance of cohorting. We now have access to testing, and we are going to protect that access. We are all working hard to pre-stock ourselves with appropriate PPE. The recommendation is that we have 3 months of PPE in stock. At Edgar, we're already at about the 2.5-month mark for that, so that we will be prepared when this occurs. We are learning about positioning patients in beds, positioning patients within the bedrooms if they have shared rooms. And we're, going to use that. Just today, our staff was watching participated in a Zoom from the CDC. We take our guidance from the CDC and the New York State Department of Health, and also the New York City Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. I have been in contact with representatives of the latter, particularly relating to the public health labs in pursuing and securing testing for our patient populations. Right now, we are forced to use a private lab because the public facilities are still only supporting the hospitals. And one last thing about nursing homes as an important piece of a continuum of care. I would point out that the nursing homes that have accepted COVID positive patients on Staten Island, can only speak to that experience, have successfully discharged patients after rehabilitating them so that they could go home after they had succumbed to their COVID-19 illness. If the nursing homes had not accepted those early patients, the successful decanting of the hospitals so that they could handle the cases that they dealt with, I just don't think that that would have occurred. I'll give you an example of the stress that the hospitals were in. Normally, Staten Island University hospitals, north and south side, have roughly 40 ICU beds. Patients who are on ventilators in hospitals, almost by definition, except for rare cases, are in intensive care units. At the height of the COVID crisis, we had over 225 ventilated patients at Staten Island University Hospital. That's increasing the vent capacity alone to 5 times what it normally could handle. When I will never forget the sound of some of my colleagues' voices as we were really going up that steep incline. Make no doubt about it, Staten Island was really at a precipice with our hospital capacity. All of that said, Staten Islanders stepped up. Very few patients left the island to be treated in New York City, either at Javits or on Comfort or at the Billie Jean King Center, et cetera. Staten Island University Hospital took over the staffing of what came to be known as Staten Island University Hospital East at the South Beach Psychiatric Center. And that was another site where stable hospitalized COVID patients were able to be sent while they continued their supportive care and treatment. And I say supportive care because there is no definitive treatment for COVID. Unfortunately, at this time, we still are in a race to find appropriate vaccines. And until we have a vaccine or until we develop enough immunity in our population, COVID is going to be a challenge for us in our region, in the United States, and in the world. And I don't really see how this can be anything less than a 2-year experience. And I don't say this to frighten anyone. I'm just giving you my medical opinion based on my experience and my conversations with thought leaders in the city, state, and on the national level. So I just wanted to give you an update of what's been happening medically, sort of behind the scenes, and I'd be happy to take any questions if anyone wishes to ask.
Okay, thank you very, very much. That was an extraordinary story. I think I speak for the board, and we have the highest respect for all of the things that you've done. And do you think we're ahead of the curve on this now so far?
Well, I think for our first phase, I think Staten Island has done really well. Social distancing, I don't think can stop right now. I think we still need to use our masks. I think that meetings like this will continue to be the norm for a while. But the good news is that our hospitalization rates are low. So that's the good news. What I'm concerned about is that if we keep up the good behavior and things continue to open up in a safe fashion, I'm just concerned about what happens when the weather cools and we have complexities like influenza. One thing that's important, everybody, make sure you get a flu shot this year, even if you weren't big on flu shots before. And even though the influenza vaccine has not always been as potent as we would have hoped, I think anything is good at this time. So if you aren't immunized for pneumococcal infections, then please get your Pneumovax and your Prevnar vaccines, and you do want to get your flu shot this year as well.
Thank you very, very much, Doctor. Does anyone
has their hand up?
Okay, Diane?
Yes, I wanted to ask, because I know it seems to keep changing. Do they currently believe that if you've had the COVID, you are not going to catch it again? And if so, are they using people who've already recovered from corona to treat patients in like your facility?
So there are two questions there. The first is, how do we know if we're immune? And unfortunately, we do not know yet. Having an antibody merely means that you have been exposed to the virus. It does not impart a knowledge of immunity, such as titers would for varicella or for German measles or mumps. You know how the kids go for their titers, and you can tell that they've gotten their vaccines, and you can see that they have adequate amounts of antibodies. In this particular situation, the presence of antibodies does not guarantee that there is immunity from the illness. And so we believe that it is possible to have it again. When we look to China and South Korea, we do see reports of secondary infection. So it could be, I think it's just that we may not recognize all of the antibodies that are appropriate for this illness, and we don't know how to measure appropriately yet for immunity. The second part of your question is that if you have antibodies, can your convalescent plasma be of benefit? There are studies through it's out west, I think the Mayo Clinic, yes. So there's a Mayo Clinic study that allows for compassionate use of convalescent plasma for patients who are hospitalized. So any hospitalized patient in New York can access convalescent plasma. A recent theory, however, is that by the time you give the plasma to a person who's sick enough to be in the hospital, it's almost too late. It's like catching a patient who has overwhelming bacterial sepsis. You can throw everything in the kitchen sink at them. If the sepsis has been ongoing for too long, the inflammatory damage is done. So I will tell you that our Incident Command has had multiple conversations with Johns Hopkins, where they are initiating studies with two arms. One arm being for ambulatory patients who've been diagnosed with COVID to be able to get convalescent plasma early. They've been diagnosed, they're sick, but not sick enough to go into the hospital. Give them convalescent plasma early. And there are 17 different sites that are involved in this study. And I believe Rumsey is trying to pull together to be, I think there are 16 sites, and Rumsey's trying to be the 17th site. The other arm, interestingly, is for exposure for persons who are in nursing homes. So if you've been exposed, but you're not sick, would convalescent plasma prevent you from coming down with the illness? So there are studies occurring, and some of them may be in a facility near you very soon, for the use of convalescent plasma very early in the course of disease. Currently, through the Mayo Clinic study, all hospitals can obtain convalescent plasma for patients who are hospitalized. We believe that convalescent plasma is most effective when it's taken from the donor very early in the course of their having antibodies. If you were sick 3 or 4 months ago, your plasma is not as good as the plasma if you were sick just a month ago.
Amazing. Mm-hmm. Thank you very much, Doctor. Mark, any other questions?
I don't see any other hands up.
Doctor, on behalf of CB2, thank you very, very much. You're welcome to come back and update us whenever you want. Just let Debbie know and you can have the floor.
You got it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Moving right along here. We've completed the public session. We're up to old business. Does anyone have any old business that they really want to talk about? Okay. Good. New business. Any new business? Okay. All right, Terry, back to you. Election of the officers.
Okay. I have a script, so I'm just going to read it and everybody just has to be patient.
Script.
Yeah, okay. We will start with the election of chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? We'll wait. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Having no nominations from the floor, I will make a motion to close the nomination for chair. Would someone please second the motion? The motion. I need someone to second it.
Seconded.
Thank you. Having no other nominations, the secretary casts one vote for Robert Cleggio for chair. All opposed, please raise your hand. No. Congratulations, Robert.
Thank you.
Okay. We will start with, next is the first vice chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Having no nominations from the floor, I will make a motion to close the nomination for first vice chair. Would someone please second the motion?
Seconded.
Thank you. Having no other nominations, the secretary casts one vote for Ed Salick for first vice chair. All opposed, please raise your hand. Congratulations, Ed.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Ed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We will start with the election of second vice chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Having no nominations from the floor, I will make a motion to close the nomination for second vice chair. Would someone please second the motion?
I second the motion.
Thank you. Having no other nominations, the secretary casts one vote for Antoinette Balzano. All opposed, please raise your hand. Congratulations, Antoinette.
Thank you so much to all.
Okay. We will start with the election of third vice chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Having no nominations from the floor, I will make a motion to close the nomination for third vice chair.
Motion to close the nomination.
Second the motion. Okay, thank you. Having no other nominations, the secretary casts one vote for Fred Gunter for third vice chair. All opposed, please raise your hand. Put your hand down.
Jerry don't want anything.
Okay.
Mute Jerry. Where's the host?
All right, we have the election of treasurer. Are there any nominations from the floor? Any nominations from the floor? Are there any nominations from the floor? Having no nominations from the floor, I will make a motion to close the nomination for chair. Would someone please?
Oh, Donna's sharing. Donna.
Please second the motion. I don't know what happened here.
I second the motion.
Okay, having no other nominations, the secretary casts one vote for Roy Glass. All opposed, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, I turn it over to you, Robert.
Okay, so I guess we're up to the secretary.
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any nominations from the floor for the secretary? Do we have any nominations from the floor for the secretary? One more time. Do we have any nominations from the floor for the secretary? Okay.
I make a motion that we close the nominations.
Motion accepted. We accept Teresa Troiano as the secretary for FY21. Welcome, Teresa.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, I think.
That's it.
Go ahead, back to you. That's it.
That's it.
All
Congratulations
right.
to everybody.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, board, too, for your confidence and the executive chairs and second and third treasurer and everyone else and the committee chairs. You guys are in business again. I don't know when, but the next meeting will be in September. So I just wanted to thank everybody. As always, we'll be reachable, and that's it. Okay, anything else before I make a motion to adjourn? Mark, anyone else? Freddie?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion that we review the bylaws come September. It's been a number of years, and I think they need to be looked at and possibly some changes made.
Gee, I wish you would have said that before we voted you in, you know? Yes, we can do that. Yes, we will do that. Thank you, Freddie. Anyone else? Raise your hand or speak up before we adjourn for FY20.
Yeah, right.
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn. Anyone second it?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, Jerry, I knew it. I had it down already. Thank you, Jerry. Motion to adjourn. The meeting is adjourned.
Have a great summer, everyone.
Have a great summer, everybody.
summer.
Dr. Seminara, be careful, please. Okay, really.
Good summer.
And thank
Be
you,
well.
everybody.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
That's right. Happy Father's Day. That's right. That's right. Exactly. Okay, we're going to leave the meeting. Thank you, everybody. Park.
Thank
everybody.
you.
Take care.
Have a great summer.
Well, stay safe, right?
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.